It's said nothing is agreed until everything is agreed, and the EU is trying to make it ridiculously complicated. It's terribly easy. We sent them a notice we're leaving. We will be leaving in March 2019. The only issue that's really worth talking about is, do they want to keep their very privileged, tariff-free access with very few barriers to our market, or don't they? We can live with world trade rules. We'd rather have a free trade agreement. The sooner they start talking about that, the sooner we can get on with it, and then you wouldn't need a transitional period, because the transitional period should be these 19 months that we still got until we leave.
I'm reminded of the big fight last weekend, you know, and you get the usual scenario, the two boxers staring at each other, and then in the opening rounds dancing around each other, and no one yet has laid a glove on anyone in this. It's just lots of threats and posturing. When's this nonsense going to stop? Well, when are both sides going to get it started?
Well, ask Mr Barnier, because it shouldn't be a fight. It's terribly easy. We are a generous partner of the European Union. We've been an extremely generous partner as a member. We wish to be a very generous trading partner and friend and ally once we're out. So I'm saying we don't want to be boxing them. There's no point in boxing them.
No, but my question
we are making them a very generous offer of a great future relationship which will be good for them and us.
Yes, but John,
and when they respond to it positively, it will work.
But when do you think, and I'm talking about months and weeks and days, when are we going to start getting some positivity coming out of these negotiations instead of the posturing? How much longer is this nonsense going to go on for?
Well, I told you need to ask Mr Barnier that. The British media constantly cross-examines the British side, trying to get us to negotiate with ourselves.
So you don't know?
It would be very stupid to negotiate with ourselves. I can't predict what Mr Barnier is going to do.
No, okay.
All I know is that in the next 19 months, at some time, the EU has to understand that we are leaving and that they need a good, positive relationship with us, just as we are offering them that. Yes. And we are being extraordinarily friendly and positive. The British government is.
I'm not sure
the EU has been remorselessly negative.
Barnier,
well, they've been so negative. All this nonsense that we owe them 65 billion or 100 billion.
David
we don't owe them anything.
Right.
We've been paying them huge sums of money for more than 40 years.
For a fact
and if the government thinks, and you know, Boris Johnson has said they can go and whistle for their money, if the government thinks we owe them nothing, then why don't we just say that? But the fact is that it doesn't work that way. David Cameron made commitments which go beyond 2019. If you go to a restaurant and order the food, you don't do a runner before you've paid the bill. And that is the situation we're in with the EU. On the other matter of the talks, I mean, Mr Barnier has made it clear.
To pay, Mr Kinnock? So if we're talking about, you know, being clear and saying what figure we will or won't pay, what does Corbyn's government, if there should be one, what will you pay to move these negotiations on?
Well, the principles are based on the financial perspectives which go through to 2020, 2021. The precise calculations need to be agreed for those between the European Union and the United Kingdom.
But you agree there is a figure to be paid,
be a country that's respected.
There is
I do
a 40
agree that
billion,
there's a figure
say,
to be paid because we have legal obligations, contractual obligations. I think the first question is to agree the principles, but there's also an opportunity to pay those over a longer period of time. So it's not necessarily that amount of money in a short period of time before we leave.
So even you don't know. I mean, this is the problem.
Needs to start showing some.
Even the Labour Party don't actually have a figure, do they? So, in a sense, you know, the general public really must be wondering, scratching their heads, thinking, who on earth are we going to turn to for any facts?
But it's even worse than that, because we've just had Mr Kinnock saying that we have contractual... Hang on, Mr Kinnock. We just had Mr Kinnock saying that we have a contractual obligation to make a certain payment, figure to be decided. That's what he's saying as a fact. You're saying as a fact we have no such contractual obligations whatsoever.
No, of course you don't.
So who do we believe?
When we joined the EU, they had put in all sorts of liabilities for the future, and they didn't give us a cash sum to reflect the fact that they'd already committed themselves to future liabilities. We just had to pay as soon as we became a member. So when you leave, you don't have to pick up liabilities, which is spending you're not going to benefit from after you've left.
So he's wrong.
Of course he's wrong. It's not like having a meal in a restaurant. We're paying for the meal we've eaten. Indeed, we're paying 2 or 3 times over. But we're not going to be eating after we've left, so why would we be paying the restaurant?
Can I, Mr Kinnock, you may want to respond to that, but can I also ask, you know, Keir Starmer obviously Keir Starmer came out with the new party line, which is that you now want to stay within the single market for 4 years after the 2019 deadline. Do we not then have to carry on paying £9 billion a year for those 4 years too, on top of what we're already paying, and then also pay this undisclosed figure? So in a sense, what your party is suggesting is that we keep paying and never stop, essentially.
Well, the proposal that's been put forward is that we stay as close as possible to the single market, and that always will incur costs. So my view is that we should move the United Kingdom into the European Economic Area. That clearly takes us out of the EU, takes us out of the jurisdiction of the Court of Justice, but gives us the opportunity to control immigration and also have access to the single market. The fundamental question has always been with Brexit, do we sacrifice the jobs, the economy, the livelihoods of our community with a car crash Brexit jumping over a cliff, or do we walk calmly and slowly off a bridge so that we do leave the EU, but we leave it in a smooth way that doesn't wreck the British economy? What we've seen from the government up until now is gross incompetence.
Mr. Kinnock, thank you very much.
And big decisions have to be made in October.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Can I just repeat a question asked another contributor an hour ago? And please, just a sentence, because we're over time. Who's going to blink first?
Well, they will, because they have their trade at risk. 160 other countries around the world trade with the single market every day of the year without being a member and without being in the EEA. It's complete drivel to say that we're going to lose jobs and lose trade when we leave the EU. The only issue is, do they want tariffs on their cars and their food to us, or don't they? And the sooner they make up their mind on that, the sooner we can put in place rational decisions.